Coming up on this Wednesday edition of Daybreak, ending months of gridlock, Korea's National Assembly passes scores of key bills, with many aimed at improving welfare and rooting out corruption. Korea finalizes plans for its dispatch of medical personnel to West Africa to join global efforts to contain Ebola. The first team leaves on Saturday. Plus, a long-awaited US Senate report shows the CIA lied about the brutality of its interrogations of al-Qaeda suspects in the years following the 9/11 terrorist attacks. Daybreak begins now. Hello and thanks for joining us. To our viewers around the world, it's 6 a.m. on Wednesday, December 10th here in Seoul. I'm Mark Broome and you're tuned in to Daybreak. And we start at Korea's National Assembly, where after months and months of parliamentary deadlock, lawmakers finally passed core bills aimed at improving the nation's welfare system and tackling widespread corruption. But other critical bills will have to wait until an extra session slated for later this month. Our Ji Myung-gil starts us off.
Starting next year, families facing severe financial hardships will get more help from the government. The National Assembly passed 3 revised welfare bills Tuesday that will expand the scope of beneficiaries and put up a strong safety net for destitute families. The bills were proposed after a mother and her 2 daughters committed suicide in February in Seoul because of financial troubles. On top of the welfare bills, rival parties also passed an anti-corruption bill that will restrict public officials from getting new jobs for up to 3 years after they retire. It's intended to stem the long-standing practice of government officials taking jobs related to their area of purview after retirement, something that often leads to corporate malfeasance and negligence. Violating the law carries a possible punishment of 2 years in prison and fines of $18,000. However, the parliament has been dragging its feet on another anti-corruption bill that would set up stricter punishments for civil servants who receive bribes. It is still up for review in committee as lawmakers are at loggerheads on whether families of civil servants should be subject to punishment if implicated in a related bribery case. Lawmakers are trying to minimize any subjective interpretation of the bill. Another issue on hold is reducing lawmakers' privileges. Rival parties failed to come to an agreement on a clause that will strip lawmakers of their immunity from arrest while Parliament is in session. It's a contentious matter that has been brought up nearly every election cycle for years, but there has been no real action so far. With the regular parliamentary session over, it is likely that the bill that would strip lawmakers of certain privileges will be taken up at an extraordinary session that opens December 15th. Ji Myung-gil, Arirang News.
And staying with domestic politics, the leaders of Korea's ruling and main opposition parties will meet on this Wednesday in an attempt to smooth out their differences on a number of pending issues. Dubbed the 2+2 joint meeting, 2 leaders from each party, including ruling Sony party leader Lee Wang-gu and his New Politics Alliance for Democracy counterpart, Woo Yoon-gun, will try to reach a compromise on a public officials' pension plan, as well as launching a probe into possible corruption related to a major river renovation project. Now, this isn't the first joint meeting between the 2 parties. Leaders from the 2 sides held a similar gathering last December, in which they found middle ground on some key issues through the establishment of a special committee. Recent allegations that a former aide of President Park Geunhye has been meddling in state affairs without a formal position has been grabbing headlines, as you might expect in recent weeks. For more on how this controversy has led to calls for a complete overhaul of the president's leadership style, our Choi Yu-sun reports.
Days after vehemently dismissing a recent media report alleging her former aide has been exercising influence over state affairs, President Park Geunhye at Tuesday's cabinet meeting further tightened her grip on the administration.
모든 언행이 사적인 것이 아니라 국민을 바라보고 행하는 그런 그 사명감에 충실할 수밖에 없습니다.
This was likely in response to former Culture Minister Yoo Jin-young claiming that President Park had personally ordered dismissals of personnel within his ministry, which fanned allegations that some of the president's aides were abusing their influence. The presidential office last Friday denied Yoo's claims. Despite President Park's firm stance, pollster Realmeter says support ratings for the president dropped days following the November 28 media report. A group of the ruling party's first and second-term lawmakers, meanwhile, urged the president to turn the situation into an opportunity to reform her style of running the country, be more transparent in appointing personnel, and communicate better with officials and the public. The prosecution's investigation into the leaked document in the media report will soon announce its findings. But what the public is more concerned about is how the president will make her administration more transparent and improve the current system of running the country. Choi Yu-sun, Arirang News.
President Park Geunhye has expressed hopes to share the vision behind her economic innovation plan with Brunei. Meeting with the Sultan of Brunei at her office on Tuesday, the president compared her three-year plan to spur growth and create jobs with a similar initiative in Brunei, adding that she looks forward to sharing each other's wisdom and experience. On that front, Korea seeks to win major infrastructure projects in the Southeast Asian nation. The Sultan, in response, touted Korea's achievements, particularly in cutting-edge technology. Following their summit, the two leaders also signed deals, including one on agricultural development and cooperation. Now, leaders from ASEAN member countries, including the Sultan of Brunei, are gathering in Korea and particularly the southern port city of Busan ahead of a special summit there that will mark 25 years of relations. Now, this event is expected to take the two sides' economic ties to the next level. Park Geunhye reports.
Despite the slumping global economy, Korea's trade volume with ASEAN has been on a steady rise, thanks to a free trade agreement between the two parties and the Korean wave that boosted demand for Korean products and services. Since 2007, after a free trade deal went into effect, the trade volume between Korea and ASEAN rose more than 11% on average every year and exceeded the $100 billion mark for the first time in 2011. ASEAN now stands as Korea's second largest trading partner following China. But when looking at their economic relationship in the longer term, experts point out the excessive trade surplus that Korea is recording with the Southeast Asian group.
The huge trade deficit ASEAN is posting with Korea will become a thorny issue as both parties try to strengthen their economic cooperation. The trade imbalance will have to be resolved down the road.
The ASEAN Economic Community that's set to be established next year, however, is expected to become a new opportunity for Korea to further expand ties. The community aims to achieve regional economic integration with a single market and production base, making it easier for Korean companies to do business there. During the two-day summit in Busan, Asian leaders will also lay out a blueprint for cooperation and set a new goal of increasing trading volume to $200 billion by 2020. Hong Jie, Arirang News.
Now, staying with that Korea-ASEAN summit in Busan, which kicks off on Thursday, and South Korea is expected to call on its friends in Southeast Asia to help it deal with North Korea's nuclear weapons program. Hwang Sang-hee reports.
When it comes to diplomatic cooperation, South Korea and the ASEAN countries are at a clash of interest. South Korea is seeking support for its efforts to counter North Korea's nuclear weapons program, but its Southeast Asian partners are hesitant since the issue already involves the big powers like the United States and China. The ASEAN nations want Seoul to stand on their side in the South China Sea maritime dispute against Beijing, something that could shake up South Korea's relations with China. All this will be up for discussion when President Park Geunhye meets the leaders of 10 ASEAN countries in Busan later this week. The Korea-ASEAN Commemorative Summit will be another occasion for dialogue among the Middle Power nations, along with the ASEAN Regional Forum and the ASEAN Plus 3. Since the 10 nations attending the upcoming summit have diplomatic ties with both Koreas, they could play a unique role on the Korean peninsula.
By explaining the situation on the Korean peninsula from our point of view and making the ASEAN countries aware, they can act as a bridge between South and North Korea. They can also indirectly deliver their objective perspective on a certain issue to Pyongyang.
And since Southeast Asian countries, namely Thailand and Laos, are one of the most taken routes for North Korean defectors, cooperation on that issue could be one of the informal agenda items at the upcoming meeting. Hwang Sang-hee, Arirang News.
We start before the sun rises to bring you the latest stories out of Korea. We also lead the way with important global coverage. Stay on the pulse of what is happening with Daybreak.
Korea has confirmed its plan to send 30 medical workers in 3 separate dispatches to Ebola-hit West Africa. The Foreign Ministry says the first group, 4 doctors and 6 nurses, will leave Seoul on Saturday. The second group is expected to travel to West Africa in January, with the remainder set to leave in February. The medical workers will receive safety training for 1 week in London first before heading to Sierra Leone. The Korean government will also provide an additional $5 million to join global efforts to fight Ebola. The U.S. Federal Bureau of Investigation, the FBI, says it still can't figure out who was or wasn't the mastermind of last month's devastating cyber attack on Sony pictures. Speaking at a cybersecurity conference in Washington on Tuesday, senior FBI official Joe Demarest said there's nothing linking North Korea to the attack that led to the theft of thousands of files, leaked unreleased movies and revealed confidential information about the company's employees. Analysts say the remark suggests the FBI may be broadening its inquiry. Now, there had been a lot of speculation North Korea was behind the cyber attack, as the regime was so up in arms over the upcoming release of a Sony Pictures comedy movie called The Interview, which depicts 2 Americans attempting to assassinate North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. Now, it's been almost 1 year since North Korea's Jang Sung-taek, who was seen as one of the most important links between China and North Korea, was purged and then subsequently executed. Experts say the chill is still being felt between China and North Korea, but the North might have found a new friend to the north of China. Our Ijun has more.
It wasn't welcome news for China last year when it heard North Korea's young leader Kim Jong-un purged his uncle Jang Sung-taek. Jang was well known for supporting closer ties with China, especially for Beijing-backed economic reforms. A year has passed, but China and North Korea relations are still feeling the strain from Jang's execution. The number of political exchanges between the 2 countries has fallen sharply. In fact, in July, the Chinese president visited South Korea first, skipping a traditional stopover in Pyongyang. As for their economic ties, the 2 countries were looking to develop North Korea's Nasan and Hwanggeunpyeong special economic zones. However, these projects also hit a major speed bump after Jang's death. In numbers, China's trade with North Korea dropped by about 3% in the second quarter of this year, although it still accounts for most of North Korea's foreign trade. As for North Korea's nuclear test threats, Beijing was unusually bold in its criticism. It agreed to tighten UN Security Council sanctions on the regime. But while North Korea may be losing China, it's making friends with Russia.
Despite criticism toward its nuclear program and human rights violations, North Korea is still managing to continue its diplomatic efforts with Russia.
Just last month, North Korea's top official Choi Ryong-hae was in Moscow to discuss trade and joint projects. But despite the chill in the air, experts say there's still a chance that China and North Korea could make up in the near future and be back on the same page again. Lee-Jun, Arirang News.
Now, the inter-Korean Kaesong Industrial Complex will mark its 10th anniversary next week, and while you could say it's a notable achievement, just getting to 10, given the to and fro tensions between the Koreas, many watchers say the industrial park has never reached its true potential due to Seoul and Pyongyang's very rocky relationship. Park Geunhye reports.
In the 10 years since the inner Korean Kaesong Industrial Complex first opened, operations have grown with more than 120 companies currently operating there. However, manufacturing output has been less than steady, stunted due to political and security instability. Last year, operations at the complex were halted for more than 5 months after North Korea withdrew its tens of thousands of workers amid diplomatic tensions. That slashed both output and the industrial park's credibility. Despite the limitations, South Korea has gained a direct economic benefit worth over $3.2 billion over the past 10 years from the venture, while North Korea's total comes to $380 million. That's according to a new report from the Hyundai Research Institute. But it also talks about the unrealized potential of the complex. The industrial park currently measures about 3.3 million square kilometers in size, which is just about 5% the size laid out in the original plan.
Most operations at the complex center now focus on simple processing. The next phase should focus more on high-value added industries like heavy chemicals and tourism. The final phase would aim to become an economic hub of Northeast Asia.
The institute adds that should operations at Kaesong ever approach the final phase of the development, the venture could bring in over $68 billion worth of benefits for both Koreas. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
Okay, time now for a look through the global headlines we're following this Wednesday morning here in Seoul. For that, we turn to Eunice Kim, standing by at the news center. Good morning, Eunice.
And good morning to you, Mark. A controversial report on a post-9/11 CIA program is rocking Washington after it was released by the Senate Intelligence Committee on Tuesday. The 500-page summary of the committee's full report reflected a 5-year investigation on the program known as rendition, detention, and interrogation during the George W. Bush administration. It said the techniques used on al-Qaeda captives and other terror suspects in secret detention facilities in multiple countries were far more brutal than the CIA had led the public, lawmakers, or the White House to believe. Methods that included weeks of sleep deprivation and exposure to cold. The Senate report said the interrogation techniques, which were ended when Barack Obama came to the presidency, went beyond legal boundaries and were ineffective in stopping a single plot. But outraged critics of the report argued it was flat out wrong and that the controversial program was helpful, including in finding and killing al-Qaeda leader Osama bin Laden. Ahead of the summary's release, security was boosted at U.S. embassies and other facilities around the world in preparation for any retaliation. In some good news for France, the country's last hostage has been freed from the hands of Islamist militants. That's according to French President François Hollande, who announced Sergei Lazarevic was released on Tuesday from Mali and was on his way home to Paris. The 50-year-old had been held prisoner of al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb and was the last French national being held hostage anywhere in the world. Paris has insisted there had been no ransoms paid, but there are suspicions that the release was a result of a prisoner swap deal. More headaches for a smartphone-based car service, Uber. It has been banned this time in Spain and Thailand after being hit with restrictions in India and the Netherlands this week. A Spanish judge ruled in favor of a Madrid taxi association, which had argued that Uber services amounted to unfair competition by drivers not authorized to provide the cab service. And in Thailand, the government said Uber's credit card system did not comply with rules and that its drivers were not insured nor registered to drive for-profit vehicles.
And a good Wednesday morning to you all as we kick things off with the 2014 KBO Golden Glove Awards, which honored the best players in each position for the 2014 season. And highlighting the event was Nexen hero slugger Seogun Chung, who received the award for the second baseman category, adding to the MVP honor he received this season. And his teammate Andy Van Hecken, who posted a 20-win season, became the first foreigner to be honored in 5 years, winning the pitchers category. Meanwhile, Samsung Lions slugger Lee Seung-yup set a new KBO record, winning his 9th Golden Glove Award, this time for the designated hitter category. And staying in the KBO, after the presidents of the KBO teams got together for a meeting on Tuesday, they've decided on adding a new wildcard game between the 4th and 5th place teams starting in 2015. Now, to make the KBO postseason a bit more exciting, the KBO has decided to add an additional game before the usual best-of-5 series between the 3rd and 4th place teams. Now, the new format, the 4th and 5th place teams will face off, and if the 4th place team wins or ties, they advance to the next round. Meanwhile, the 5th place team needs to win twice in order to advance to the next round, adding their own twist to what the MLB does with their wildcard playoff game. Now, there are things that just don't mix: water and oil, and sports and politics. And with the national football team head coach Uli Stölke holding a conference in front of the K-League Classic managers on Tuesday, he stressed the importance of leaving politics out of sports. Now, in a luncheon with head coach Uli Stölke and the head coaches of the K-League Classic teams, he stressed the idea of leaving politics out of sports, adding that it was regrettable that there have been political interventions in football. Now, this comes after Seongnam City Mayor and current owner of Seongnam FC Lee Jae-myung was punished for his remarks in the officiating of the K-League referees, while South Gyeongsang Province Governor Hong Jung-pyo was not. As Mayor Lee Jae-myung stated, it was because of the difference in the political parties. Meanwhile, manager Stölke hopes to hold more conferences in the future regarding technical issues. And finishing things off in Formula One racing, while some F1 fans in the nation are getting excited over the possible return of the Korean Grand Prix in the 2015 season, not everyone is for the idea, especially for some of the F1 teams and drivers. Now, according to a German report, several teams and drivers have been expressing their discontent over the addition of the Korean Grand Prix for the 2015 season, stating that such addition into the schedule is unnecessary. Now, some of the drivers added that a 21-race schedule is too tough, and with the financial issues that the Korean Grand Prix faces, it should not be added to the 2015 schedule. And that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day, and see you guys again for your sports needs.
Good morning. Well, it should be relatively mild today. Even right now, the current temperature is at about -1 here in Seoul, and that's about 6 degrees higher than yesterday. And the daytime high will rise above the seasonal norms this afternoon. But clouds will be sticking around throughout the day, and late now snow is in forecast for many parts of the nation, and Seoul will receive less than 1 centimeter of snowfall overnight. And as for today's reading, the low in the capital kicked off at -2, then the daily high will hike up to 4, while Daegu and Gwangju peak at 7 and 8, and Busan will top out at 11 this afternoon. And as for the other regions, Jeju Island will be getting up to 10, while Daejeon and Dokdo sees highs of 5 later in the afternoon. Now, dry weather advisory is still in place for Seoul, so be extra cautious when handling fire and take good care of your health. That's all for Korea, and here's the international weather for viewers around the world.
Well, that's all we have for you at this hour. For more, don't forget to check out our website, arirang.co.kr/news. Goodbye.